You want to start the music? Not that I'm going to be prepared by
Ready?
any means.
All right.
You just hit it.
All right. Here we go. It's it. Whoops, wait. Let me start.
Well, thank you very much. Hello. We are here this evening, and sorry to be late. I had some technical issues, as I usually do, which is why I never went professionally into production. Why is this not working? Oh. I'm going to figure out all the technical problems kind of at work.
That's okay. We should let people know this is the after hours show.
Yes, this is the after hours
part of the
show.
Autonomous Collective.
The Autonomous Collective at theautonomouscollective.net. We try to do this for an hour every Friday, and I'm just hanging in here while Joe on España is on España, and I think hopefully next week we will be back on track where people who know how to do production better than those of us who have the experience of a couple of years of college radio, which is pretty much all one's experience is these days. But anyway,
what more do you need?
Welcome. What more does anyone need, considering that all of underground radio was pretty much college radio plus. But anyway, enough of my yammering. Tonight, I'm going to talk about pizza. It's National Pizza Day. Happy National Pizza Day, which is on the same day as the Lunar New Year. Happy Lunar New Year to you all, or Spring Festival. The moment where 8 million people wander all over China, or I think it's 8 million, maybe it's 20 million. A lot of folks are on the train today or traveling in certain parts of the world, notably Asia. And Year of the Dragon, for those of you keeping track of these matters, supposed to be an auspicious year. It could be really awful in one sense. We'll see. We'll soon see. What else is going to happen? I have no idea. I'm going to try and switch over in a moment here to my shared screen, which will hopefully give you a sense of what I'm going to yak about in the absence of oh, damn it. And then I'm going to swear at the thing again. Come on, you bastard. There we go.
You bastards.
My mouse, I have I decided I would get a more precision mouse, but it's designed for people who play games, and I'm not a game player, so it stuff looks weird. Anyway, so I'm hopefully you can see what I'm showing. Can you see that? Yes, on the screen, all you folks in the studio.
Yes, we can.
Good, excellent. I will see if I can get this a little bit larger.
It is pretty zoomed in.
I can see if I can get this bigger, but somehow I see what I did wrong. everything. And it's telling me that whatever. Anyway, I'm going to do Ukraine tonight fairly quickly, although it's a kind of auspicious week, a very strange week in many ways. Dr. Carlson decided that he would interview Vladimir Putin, and it was broadcast on X/Twitter, and it was a total fiasco. Essentially, he just sort of got beat up by Putin, and Putin made fun of him and said, that he was such a failure when he tried to join the CIA and a bunch of other things. It was really a good opportunity for Putin actually to support Trump's presidential campaign, but he didn't. And so essentially he just sort of abused, he put out his own propaganda and abused Tucker Carlson, which is kind of the deal for autocrats, is never to submit to the press. So there's 2 hours of it. It's a lot of people have analyzed it, and it's pretty much a joke. But that's to let you know that other things are going on a global scale. It did have a fairly big audience, 12 million, I think, or some weird number, I think. Anyway, at the same time, and I think it's really important, more important, is Valery Zelensky was fired by Vladimir Zelensky from being the supreme commander, as it were, of the Ukrainian armed forces. And he had been the head since the beginning of the war. It was pretty chaotic at the front end, but needless to say, Ukrainians did fight back, took back most of the country. It's still 18 to 20% in the hands of the Russians. And there were issues with Zelensky. He was under pressure from President Zelensky, to run the summer counteroffensive, which didn't quite go as planned. What I think sunk him was that he did a couple of public pronouncements or op-eds that, and in one interview, he accidentally mentioned stalemate, which sort of screwed him completely relative to the overall impression of how the war is going. So that doesn't mean to say that he's not a good general. I think the victories in Kherson and Kharkiv are where he routed a pretty serious number of Wagner mercenaries. I think those are all important. Taking back a significant part of the southern flank, as it were, of the battle area. But needless to say, he got replaced, and the person with whom he got, or by that who replaced him, the guy who replaced him was a guy named Zerinsky, who is a more Russian-oriented. In fact, his family is still in Russia, which raised some questions to other people about whether he was going to have trouble because people in Russia might threaten his family, etc. His mother and father are still alive, and he in fact didn't come to Ukraine until he was 15. So there's a variety of other issues. Also, they say that his doctrinal style is very Russian-like. In other words, throwing lots of troops at the enemy. That's may or may not be true, and I think we're going to see some different things coming up, but we're all waiting for that to change. I put up a little thing on the state of democracy to give you a sense of what is a full democracy. Full democracy is the dark blue. You could say that the United States is a kind of flawed democracy. We're currently in a flawed state. Canada being less flawed, more full by comparison. And this is kind of what the world looks like. It's has a red and blue kind of weird character to it, just to give you a sense. And this is the British Journal, The Economist, did this analysis, and I wanted to show a little chart. And I'm just going through the charts from a week of Ukrainian stuff. This is the proportion as a German chart which shows a proportion of GNP devoted to supporting NATO. And you can see the relative proportions. Canada, America does 20%, or 0.2%, that which is kind of what it's supposed to do. The percentage change from the fourth quarter of 2019, where we currently are, you can see that there's been a rise in the American dollar, as well as the British pound and the euro. So things are actually okay from an economic point of view at this moment in the global crisis. I included also here, this is stuff I do every night, so I sort of throw in a little chart every day to give people a sense of, well, this is kind of what's going on in terms of the media landscape relative to this funny little war that's going on in Ukraine, where Russians are still dying at a fairly high rate, anywhere from 800 to 1,000, and battles are pretty serious. And if you watch any of the peripheral channels or Telegram, you can actually see a lot of video of people getting killed, which is it's pretty grisly when you think about it. And it's not Hollywood. People, when they die, they just die, or they get blown up. And there's a lot of explosions and people being obliterated by explosions, which is pretty frightening if you really want to see that it's going on, because it is going on. And it's no different than Israel, Gaza in that particular sense, that people are simply being wiped out. I put in a NATO chart here. This doesn't include the entry of Finland and Sweden, but you can see kind of what has been the area of contention, which remains still an area of contention because of Ukraine and because of the tensions of NATO, et cetera. I put up a couple of things in my little postings at Daily Kos that indicate that it's really not so much for the Russians. It's not about Ukraine. It's really this larger sort of scope of chaos that they want to create across NATO. And it is, of course, serving the Russians in a certain way. The chaos allows a certain kind of development, despite the fact that they've had to make a lot of adjustments, like in oil transport and sort of sneaking oil here and there, changing hulls and et cetera, transponders on oil tankers. So what the mainstream media tries to convince you of is that the last 6 months or so, this is what the area of contact looks like, and hence it doesn't seem like there's a lot of war going on. There's and there's plenty of war going on, believe me. 2 nights ago, there was a fire at one of the major missile construction bases in Russia. It may simply have been an accident, but in certain other cases, oil refineries and other kinds of military-related locations within Russia, within about 200 kilometers or 200 to 400 kilometers within Russia, have been hit by drones or a variety of other things. So I wanted to just give you a kind of background on that as well. Now, it looks like this little blue area seems like that's the only area where fighting is occurring. Well, yes, at this scale there is. But if you look at it much more closely, you can see this is from 2 days ago, how many different little altercations have occurred across the entire line of battle. If you can see this is Crimea here. This is the 4 southeastern oblasts of Ukraine that are being fought over. The current area, which is one of the reasons why people have trepidation over the movement of the war, is the town of Avdiivka, which is an industrial city on the edge of Donetsk, which has been in the hands of the separatists or the occupiers for quite some time, nearly a decade. So on the one hand, there seems to be no movement. On the other hand, there's a lot of fighting over what apparently is only 900 people left in a town that originally had 32,000. It's the place of a major rail facility. The coke and steel production. It's coke for steel production is there. It's got a pretty big rail yard. It is in a kind of valley on the road to Donetsk, which is pretty significant considering that Donetsk is like the biggest city in the south from an industrial point of view. I mean, there are plenty of other industrial cities like Mariupol, et cetera, and of course famous cities like Odessa and Luhansk. But Donetsk is a very significant sized city. And it seems clear that the Ukrainians are not going to be able to take the whole city. What they might do at some moment is, because they're very close, and in the initial phase of the original war in 2014, Donetsk Airport was actually one of the key areas that was attacked and held actually by the Ukrainians for quite a while. But anyway, this will give you a sense that there's plenty of combat going on in this particular area. It appears at this present moment, as I speak, that the Ukrainians, while well dug in, are probably withdrawing simply because that's their style. It's not a matter of throwing human waves at the enemy, which is kind of the Russian style of doing things. And so this is kind of the same stuff's going on. Helicopters are getting knocked down. There's plenty of missiles flying back and forth, a ton of artillery. This is a range area of about 20 kilometers, which is about the edge of the range of most of the artillery, the tube artillery that's being used. Of course, missiles get a little bit better range, and of course, it's complicated by all other kinds of issues of fire control, et cetera. Anyway, drones are kind of the key thing, considering that there's a shortage in tube artillery ammunition. And, I think there is actually plenty of ammunition, but the stocks are getting very low. And there's plenty of news reporting about how the EU is actually filling in. I assume there's plenty of stocks of artillery ammunition sitting around somewhere that need to be shifted around. So it's really all about logistics. But at the front end, relative to the United States Congress, hopefully going to produce a get out of the deadlock over funds for Ukraine and Israel, and all of the tying of them together with other budget elements, which is quite sad, but also has revealed how incompetent the GOP is, which is actually a good thing. So that's kind of the current state of that. This particular graph here, which is another version of the Avdiivka map, shows the array of military units. The red ones are the Russians, and the blue ones are the Ukrainians. And each is about a battle group, about a brigade-sized element. So that this means that in this particular area, we have 50,000 or 100,000, if you add up both sides, kind of working through this area with a variety of daily, battles, small battles, skirmishes, attacks, artillery barrages, and all that sort of stuff. So you can see that despite the fact that it seems, well, it's a big country and, everyone's kind of spread out, on the other hand, there's plenty of troops and a lot of carnage going on. And this will give you a sense of the range of Ukrainian long-range attack drones that they're using. They have a variety of ones. One of the latest ones they're using is using a small German turbojet, and whether that's cost-effective is another question. So most of them are propeller-driven; they don't travel quite so quickly. And there are other sides to the kind of logistical element here. These are decommissioned rockets that are they're non-guided rockets that can be fired from helicopters. The Canadians have this surplus that they don't use anymore, and they have 7,000 of them. So there's been talk of transferring those, like they transferred some of their Leopard 2 tanks to the Ukrainians. So that's going to happen as well. Hopefully these things can be fired from Ukrainian helicopters, which are, of course, Russian helicopters, not the kind that the Canadians use. So these are other kinds of elements. The other thing that I wanted to rant about, which I'm going to move right into before I talk about pizza, is a thing today where there was a discussion. Luke Zaleski does some pretty good analysis on Twitter or X. And he asked the question, there needs to be accountability for the folks who blew the COVID response. This is at the front end in 2020, when we had a little bit of chaos about being able to work out whether there was or wasn't going to be quarantines. How was the contact going to be sort of handled at a national level about in terms of people being diagnosed and tested? And note, of course, that during this period, son-in-law Jared Kushner, with one of his little buddies, wanted to create a large, massive national, but yet privately owned database to organize this both vaccine and contact and a variety of other things, which would have given him and his little corporation a control of most of the national database of American healthcare, which would have been sort of even more weird if it ever happened. Fortunately or unfortunately, this is the chaos, that comes with this. This was sidelined because Trump decided to play with the idea of fear as a political weapon in order to get reelected. And so what could have been, regardless of, Kushner's ultimate motives to create a independent national health database, Trump decided to play with it in much more different terms. That is, giving money to individuals and making sure that his name was on the checks. A whole variety of. I think in the long run, we're going to see how comically or weirdly constructed all of these actions were. But anyway, Zaleski here says it was the greatest national security and public health failure in American history. I think it was, even though the toll probably didn't match. For example, I think the Spanish flu was slightly larger. But the issue was, of course, it got worse because of the disinformation and anti-vaccine elements that were built into this simply to support the Republican goal of reelection. And with all respect, from a cynical point of view, it does seem to me that some people need to point that out, that it may in fact be that the GOP may have committed a kind of, more people died. Let's just put it that way. And there is a kind of pretending why it didn't happen. So that's Zaleski's kind of comment on it. Kushner's coronavirus team shied away from a national strategy, believing that the virus was hitting Democratic states hardest and that they could blame governors. This was an important element, although this announcement in July was a little bit past when they made a lot of these decisions. If you will recall, months earlier, there was the whole issue of bleach and lights, light probes, and a whole variety of other craziness. The whole chaos of it, of course, I think is why a significant number of people managed to defeat the re-election of Trump. And also, of course, as a result, we had the attempt to overthrow the government, which we are now currently in legal kind of throes of. So in the current moment, it's National Pizza Day. And the point I want to make, and I'm going to publish this in about another hour over at Daily Coast. It's like other national days seems anomalous for what is a very local food product. There are national pizza, concerns, and but it is a highly, as it were, disintegrated kind of a field of firms. There's just a lot of small pizzerias, and most of them are pretty interesting or good or whatever. I mean, the food itself is a just-in-time, fast as it were food. It's not as fast as we might think, of course, but there is a sort of the question of home delivery and all that is different since COVID. COVID changed a lot of things. It changed our habits about things. It changed the way we approach stuff. It created a severe ideological divide and mistrust of public health initiatives and a whole variety of other things. And with on one hand comedic elements, but on the other hand tragic elements, considering at the front end there were all those backups and how to handle the dead, how to deal with proper health measures, a whole variety of other things. Now, on the other hand, I eat cheap frozen pizza. I ate probably far too much pizza in college, and my preference now is to have more keto-friendly, gluten-free, low-glycemic pizza, if I could get that. And I think it's better for me for a variety of reasons. But I think in general it is an issue that relates to a much larger question of veganism, vegetarianism, the things that our little program here is sort of famous for. So I'm offering up that little side moment of trying to stick with the program. And Joe on España is, I'm not going to replace his cooking at all. And I am always amazed by the range and diversity and also the subtlety in the way he constructs meals. And hopefully he will be back next week to do that. But in my own little small way, I'm trying to, and certainly it's Joe's influence has helped me certainly to rethink my diet and try to replicate things that are really more about things that are tasty, not simply stuffing food in one's face. It is sad in the current state of inflationary pricing that everything's really expensive now. I used to be able to get a decent little pizza for a frozen pizza for about $5 on sale. That's more and more difficult now, and it's nearly twice as much, and without even thinking about whether it's a gourmet whatever collection of or more locally produced. So these are the inflationary issue here, though, is a short run problem because prices will go back down. They will. It is built into the way the structure of the current economy is, and interest rates will be going down at some moment, maybe perhaps not as much as we want. And of course, there are other forces that because they want Trump in power for whatever reason. It's not really a good reason because it actually is less, as I think he himself has shown, it's less profitable. But my interest in pizza is simply that it's fairly quick and that there's a whole range of potential substitutes. So I wanted to show a couple of things that perhaps you haven't thought about, that there is a plant-based mozzarella cheese out there. All the same vegetables can be used. The base for the what was pasta can be substituted with other flours, almond, chickpea, cauliflower. Pre-prepared cauliflower seems to be the more available, that is non-wheat basis. But I think actually if you think about it, there's certainly enough other kinds of flours available out there that some of which have sufficiently high numbers of protein that can be useful. Anyway, I just wanted to show simply because I'm hungry and I haven't had dinner yet, some of the pizzas that I probably going to try to make, even though I really am not very good at it. This one is an example of a grilled blackberry pizza with goat cheese, pistachios, and honey, grilled rather than baked. And it is, of course, a combination of sweet and savory. And that may not be the best photograph, and this is not a good photograph either, but it has basil in it. And this is a blackberry ricotta pizza with basil. And, these are interesting things to make, to combine sweet and savory. And I think they're probably pretty tasty. And then I wanted to comment about the difference between a national pizza day and a regional pizza day, or a local pizza day. Considering the diversity of firms, I think there's 30,000 pizzerias in the United States, and this doesn't include, I think, the large scale franchise pizzas, of which the dominant ones are Domino's and Pizza Hut. But you'd be surprised there are only two in the top 20 of fast food or large scale food operations. It's even more striking that Starbucks is number one, which makes little sense to me, but it does show something about consumer culture. Anyway, there are a variety of styles, and some people just have never perhaps ventured into the kind of interesting zone of possible pizzas. Some are impossible for some people. Some people don't like deep dish pizza, for example, because it's maybe less pizza-like and more pie-like. But that's a whole nother story. And then I put in a little thing that I'm going to do tonight post tonight on glycemic index, which doesn't mean that you have to do math in order to eat, but I think it's important to consider the glycemic content in your food. And while high glycemic foods are so tasty because they have fat, calories, and a whole bunch of sugar, it's quite possible to have a reasonable diet that satisfies one's urge for sweets without going crazy. I say that after having a couple of pieces of chocolate before I started this, Dutch chocolate. And I just wanted to show how wretched excess can occur to what, I was talking just now about $5 cheap frozen pizza, which is not the best way, of course, to get your pizza, although it does allow for a certain flexibility in timing. A $500 tequila lobster pizza, which it has all kinds of stuff in it, like edible platinum flakes, avocado, mango. This is the stuff that you can get in New York. Lobster, etc., caviar, truffle shavings, just stuff that you can get at your local market, right? And then it has 3 shots of Patron tequila, so needless to say, pleasant, I suppose. But it is important to have healthy ingredients, and of course, formation of HDL, the good as opposed to the bad, cholesterol, which for those of us getting a little older, I think it's really important to take care about. And I blazed through quickly, although I lost 15 minutes somehow at the front end because of our continuing issues with electronic production. And I would say this is probably all I can handle at the present moment, unless somebody else wants to intrude on my little yammering here. And of course, it may in fact be the case that I'm speaking into the ether. Am I?
No,
No, we heard you.
Oh, good.
Not at all.
All righty. Anyway, I'm at the end of things I can yammer about. I can yammer about all kinds of things, but this is the back end of my prepared remarks. Today was a tough day. Yesterday was even tougher relative to Mango Mussolini. I assume that he even considered probably showing up at court yesterday in D.C., but I think his lawyers probably convinced him that he would be an idiot for doing it. Apparently, if you've listened to the audio of the Supreme Court questioning, it weighed in on the side of essentially not allowing the Colorado case to succeed, and so apparently Trump will be on all those damn ballots, and disqualifying him unless there's another compelling type of case that comes up, which I'm sure we're running out of time to do that. It's all going to move forward, and as I have written before, among many others, that 14th Amendment solutions are not going to occur.
Nope.
And one of the real problems, of course, is the way in which the case was framed. That is, what is it, 2383, the code, the legal code for prosecuting on insurrections has not been used for over 100 years, I think. So, given the American legal system, it would have been a tough slog to try to work through. I mean, it just, had they prosecuted him, right after the insurrection to make him connect him to the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys and whatever, that would have been good. But I think that the investigative apparatus was not like some authoritarian countries where if you protest, they arrest everybody, which is what happened at the front end of the Ukrainian war. They just, went out there and arrested 1,000 or 2,000 people at a time. And I think Belarus, they did the same thing when their election went south. And in fact, if there's a model for changing an entire government, probably Belarus will be a good example when they finally do it. But needless to say, yes, that's the issue. I think, James, were you going to say something?
Well, yeah, I was going to say what you're saying regarding why, the fact that, yes, there was no prosecution, the desire to move on, quote unquote, after the election and after Biden took office is also related to your earlier comments regarding the fact that no one has been held accountable for the disaster of the COVID situation. And both of those would require an attorney general, and we really don't have an attorney general. We don't.
Well,
we have Mr. And I think of him kind of like droopy dog. Womp womp womp.
Well, it was a clown show at the front end. I mean, you had that guy Jeff Sessions, who was
he was terrible too. But I'm just saying is
Barr, etc.
Yeah, that our attorney general, and I think this is obviously coming from Biden too, is we're trying so hard to not seem partisan, to not seem vindictive, to move on, to reach across the aisle, to the point where this most recent special independent counsel report, that Biden made such a fool of himself yesterday over response to is comments about being an old doddering man with a bad memory. Well, what do you expect when you hire a Republican, independent counsel? Of course, they're going to try to do a hit job on you no matter what. And I just feel like it's like watching Lucy just pull away the football again and again and again. And I'm really frustrated. I'm angry and frustrated, but I'm also really worried about now what this means going forward, because it just seems like there's a lot of just plain old political, malfeasance. And I don't know how that bodes for the future.
Well, it is the illusion of bipartisanship. The Robert Hur, I think, the special counsel,
yes,
that investigated Biden's stuff. I mean, he is a Republican, and he did work in the Trump administration. And
what do you expect?
There was a note today that suggested that he was jockeying for to become the next attorney general in the
Well,
Trump administration.
He's
You know,
certainly
DOJ, Garland was trying to be fair, quote unquote, you know, that to have a Republican, you know, a special counsel or some, you know, whatever. It was a, you know, sort of a weird balancing act, which, you know, I think Biden reacted strangely to. I think he was a little freaked out about it yesterday when he sort of tried to, you know, shame them back into their corner. But
it didn't work.
No, it didn't work.
It backfired completely on him.
Someone should have wrote him a better soundbite for the Beau Biden thing. I think it could have been written better, and he could have delivered it better.
Well, the whole thing about his, you know, old doddering. I mean, everybody knows the famous Reagan response to Mondale, which was, you know,
yes,
concerns about my opponent's age. Well, I won't let his youth and inexperience be held against him. I mean, you know, there are ways of handling this that are much more deflective and funny. But I think I mean, what it showed the Republicans is, oh, that's how we get him. That's his real soft spot. Great. Now we know how to go after him and piss him off.
Well, the Biden people, I think, are responding in kind. You know, I mean, they put out a couple of a commercial or ads that do collect all of those very weird remarks by Trump. In fact, he even did one yesterday, which was, you know, well, he said that, you know, Nancy Pelosi was the cause of the insurrection.
Responsible.
And then he said, well, he admitted that it wasn't an insurrection. It was one of the first times. And then he caught himself and oh, if it was an insurrection. And now, a good ad would have asked the question, well, who's he really talking about? Is it Nancy Pelosi or is it Nikki Haley? Considering that he made that other weird gaffe and kept repeating because he was really unsure of who he's talking about, referring to Nikki Haley when he really meant Nancy Pelosi. And they don't really sound the same and they don't really look the same. It's sort of really weird what's going on in that guy's head.
Yeah. But that's not what gets, you know, he says those things and that's not what gets reported. He is, I think, unfortunately, Trump is kind of blunder proof at this point for the most part.
Well, you know, he's got this sort of, it's his shtick, right? The same.
Yeah, it's part of his shtick. And everybody goes, well, that's just Trump. There he goes again.
You know,
but if Biden says something like that, it's like, oh my God, to put him in a home.
I mean, the claim is that it's more entertaining, right? It's entertaining in the same way that Reagan was entertaining.
It is, and he is the simple right. He is more entertaining. He's more fun. It's simple truth. Yep. Sorry, Trump is a lot more fun and a lot more entertaining. I think he's more entertaining. Yep.
And much more dangerous. John, you put up your John.
Yeah.
You wanted to say something.
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, I think the way the Democrats handled this has been disastrous. You know, it shows that the rule of law does not apply to the powerful in this country, making people even more cynical than they already are. And, you know, showing that our institutions are not fit for purpose. I was amused by that graphic that you showed, you know, the state of democracy in the world.
Oh, indeed.
I think they were being generous to the U.S. In that. I would probably have changed the names of the categories somewhat, but
indeed.
But it was interesting, you know, to show that there are countries that are significantly more democratic than in the United States, despite all of the hoopla and self-promotion that the U.S. Says about itself.
Well, for all their faults, the Canadians do seem a bit ahead of us, at least in some categories.
In some categories,
yeah.
You betcha.
Like Putin.
Oh yes.
And poutine, caloric content. And
Yeah.
they have fully beaten us there.
And I like your yes. It's although we do have well, I don't want to focus on that. I did like your comments about ketogenic diets and eating being very aware of reducing simple carbohydrates in your diet, because that does seem to be the most problematic aspect of the American diet, in addition to eating far too much animal protein.
Indeed.
I don't think you need any animal protein, but let's see what else. Oh, um,
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about Twilight Zone, which we're going to get tonight in
yeah,
about a half hour.
okay. So, Twilight Zone tonight stars Robert Duvall. People are probably familiar with his work. He's an extremely prolific actor, highly regarded, and this was one of his early roles on television, and I think he's quite good in it. And I think I did another record in terms of slides. You may have to strap yourselves in for this one.
Anna suggests you don't tell us what the total number is.
Okay, all right. It's not much more than the previous record, but and I should mention that I will be going under the knife this coming week, and
what? No.
yes,
Our good thoughts will go with you.
Thank you, thank you. But the reason I mention it is because my nerve block will be wearing off on Friday night, so I don't think I'm going to be doing a Twilight Zone presentation on Friday.
Oh, but it could be a really fun one.
Yeah.
Oh, indeed, indeed.
I will be under the influence of opioids, so
Oh, indeed.
apparently this is a painful procedure. But what I may do is I may show some of those episodes that we skipped from the earlier season. Yes, that's right, Susanna. I will be entering a Twilight Zone of my own. I might show those. I won't do any slides and stuff, but we could comment on the ones we have skipped from earlier seasons and get your input on them.
Fine.
Or you could pick a couple of the ones that do have operations in them.
Yeah.
Or hallucinations.
Oh, indeed.
Right.
Yes, well, that's good. I think later tonight, what else are we going to get? I think perhaps Travis was going to show us some more stuff from Brian Gumbel's work on HBO, and Harsh perhaps is going to show something tonight. I don't know what else is happening later on. I'm simply teasing what else is happening. We'll have a writing workshop tomorrow. I think we're going to do another Dis and Dat at 6 o'clock, where I will do more intro stuff relative to our continuing series for Weekly Marks on Capital. And on Sunday, there will be Weekly Marks and Columbo.
Yes, Columbo.
Well, yes, we will have Columbo on Saturday afternoon. So please
Sunday
come.
afternoon.
Sunday. I mean,
5
come
o'clock.
visit us. We have other things happening this week. 5 o'clock for Columbo on Sunday, and on Monday there will be more Dis and Dat at 6. A writing workshop right after that at 7. Game time after that, and a variety of other things in short stories and other wackiness coming up next week. I think we're close to the end of our little time here, and of course, I forgot to turn on the recording. So this has been going out on YouTube, but congratulations. You'll be the part of a very small but unique audience. that will
Only after Colombo, Curtis Mayfield.
Oh, indeed. Yes. Yes.
Wait a minute, is he going to be here live?
He is. We're getting Industrial Light and Magic to reanimate his corpse.
Oh,
Stick him on the
I see.
screen, yeah.
Okay.
Can't wait.
There we go. Okay. So perhaps if we can prepare John Hayes has something to say. John, please.
Yeah, I was about to put it in the chat. Yeah, I think John kind of inferred this, but it's complex carbohydrates are very good. But most people think anything that's carbs is bad. No, the complex ones are good.
Yes, yes. And most vegetables are complex carbohydrates. Yes.
Yeah.
And those are good. Yeah.
Enjoy your vegan pizza.
Thank you very
As
much.
do I at times.
Okay, I think we're ready for the outro. If we can get that together, and I'll thank you for being here. And next week
There we
we'll have
go.
more. We'll have live cooking and stuff.
Thank you.
Wow.